Hello, all. So, revision. Revision is terrifying. I mean, it's fun. Just kidding. I wanted to have a moment to talk to you about revision, to talk about your revision. Talking about revision in general, a couple things. Revision is where the real writing happens. Anyone can write a first draft. Anyone can. And this is why when I asked for your submission, I was like, hey, don't just give me something that you wrote, when you were in the seventh grade. So anyone can write something. And I think this is where a lot of our misconceptions about writing happen. We have this idea, it was a dark and stormy night and you're at your typewriter and you're just going for it and you're drinking all the coffee. And that's not what writing is. What writing is the day in, day out, work on it piece of revision. It looks differently for everyone. And so I'm not incredibly hard on my teachers for never having told me what revision was or never exploring for me what it is, because true revision stems out of you identifying that something needs to happen in the draft, and then you need to make whatever life choices you need to make or lifestyle changes to make that happen. Revision looks different for each project that you're working on. So it's not only that it's different person by person, but it's also different project by project. So that makes things a little more complicated too. Revision is about a devotion to the draft, but it's also about re-envisioning the draft. Okay, so draft one. You write it all out, hypothetically beginning to end, but I know writing too, so it's kind of like you can write a scene beginning to end, but it might be kind of scattered in the narrative, and that's totally fine. So that's draft one. You turned it in, you're done, right? Or you're writing your novel, you put it in a drawer, you're done. Okay, revision. True revision happens after a space of time. In a 15-week semester, we don't frankly have the time. But if you're writing outside of this class, or if you're writing a novel, you want to, type the end, put it in a drawer, save it on your computer, whatever, and then forget about it. The longer the better, preferably about 6 months. After you do that, you don't go to the drawer and pick it up. You don't open the file on your computer. Instead, you sit down at another blank piece of paper or another blank Word document and you try and recreate the whole thing again. Yes, it sucks. And some of you are like, wait, you do what? And the reason for that is because only the truly important parts of the story will come through. For your draft, for this class, I want you as much as possible to rewrite the story from memory without looking at your previous draft. I know, it sounds terrifying. So what's going to happen is that as you sit down, the parts that will stick out to you are the parts that you struggled with rewriting, like internally, like mentally. You knew that you needed to have rewritten that. The parts that stick out to you are the stuff that you got feedback on. You remember what your peer review partners have said positively and the things that they've suggested for improvement. This is what's known in psychology as combining a modality with an emotion. And so you remember it better and you will rewrite it better. I promise you, you will rewrite it better because now you've combined it with an emotion. So a scene that may not have had emotion with it before, or if it did, had moderate emotion before, now has been combined with a positive or negative emotion, so it will naturally be better the second time. The stuff you forget is the fussy stuff, the small details, the color that somebody was wearing that wasn't important, or you forget the fussiness of that sentence structure on that one unclear description. That's the kind of stuff you forget. And that's the kind of stuff you're supposed to forget. That kind of stuff is what weighs us down as writers and keeps us from writing a truly good draft. Let that go. Please let it go, because if you get so trapped up in trying to contain every single detail, your writing won't be good. And it's not that it can't be good. It's that you're choosing for it to not be good because you're not choosing to let that more overpowering emotion take over. So it's an issue of priority. It's an issue of prioritizing the good, concentrated, emotional bit of the draft, because you can only have 10 pages. So if you're choosing all the fussy stuff, then you're choosing to let the fussy stuff take up your 10 pages. So, revision. For this class, I would like for you to rewrite your draft from scratch. It's 10 pages again. But I want you rewriting, re-envisioning, reimagining, dreaming again if necessary. Don't feel tied to anything. Don't feel married to a plot point or to a character or to a line of dialogue. Let it be what it is. So write it as it is authentic to you now. Don't feel like you have to be loyal to your past self, to your previous self in writing that other one. It's going to be fun. For some writers, and this is now speaking to those of you who want to write outside of just a class. Some writers choose to write in ways that make up their lifestyle or make up who they are. Some writers write every day. Writers like T. Jefferson Parker, Craig Johnson, Stephen King, Janet Ivanovich. These are all best-selling names, and these are all people who show up and write every single day. I know Craig Johnson, for instance, is somebody who, he says that he has to write at least 5 pages every day. Ray Bradbury, Fahrenheit 451, said to write a short story every single day because he said it's impossible to write 365 bad stories back to back. I'm not necessarily of the everyday school of thought because I feel like part of what makes writing truly great is that creative swell that you get pulled up in. I think if you write every single day, then it just becomes day to day. It becomes average. There's no surprise anymore. And I feel like I need to have some element of surprise. I attend a weekly writers group, and so and I'll have a different idea for each group. And I have to write outside of the group. I can't just write in my weekly writers group because if I do, I'm really not getting that much done because we're also talking, so there's that. But I mean, you find a schedule that works for you. Some people will write once a week. Some people will write, like reliably every weekend. But you are the only person who can decide for you what your schedule is. If you're not writing, something's wrong. But if you are writing, you need to determine what schedule works for you. From there, revision can happen in a number of ways. Some people in my writers group who are working on long projects will write a scene in 1 week and then write scene 2 in the second week, scene 3 in the third week, and then by week 4 they're rewriting scene 1. And then they'll do a bit of a combination. They'll rewrite in 1 week they'll rewrite and they'll write scene 4, and then in week 5 they're rewriting scene 2 and they're writing scene 5. So do whatever works for you. But you got to revise. That's where the true writing happens. Some people are visual, so they'll need to print everything and then handwrite changes and then type them up. That's what I do. But it looks different for everyone. The truth of the matter that for this class, you got to revise. Ask me if you have questions. I'm happy to guide the way for you and recommend some changes. The truth of the matter, though, is that you have to rewrite. So, yay. Have fun. Let me know if you have questions, and happy revising.